Welcome back to the program. This is ASEAN Business Report. As some have said that there's a possibility for the economic bubbles in Thailand, and here is the detail to find out more.
Deliberately building up economic bubbles. The aim is to win nationwide popular support ahead of a grand design for national reconciliation and a wholesale rewrite of the constitution. A combination of debt-based consumption and populist economic programs is designed to prop up the economy, hard hit by the deteriorating external account as a result of dwindling exports. But the whole plan will also lead to bubbles that pose great danger to the Thai economy in the years ahead. Let's examine some of the bubbles that are now prevailing throughout the economy. The spending binge goes crazy. Bubble 1. The first car policy has created artificial demand for automobiles, particularly among middle and lower income people. Auto sales are likely to hit 1.43 to 1.45 million units this year. This represents a growth rate of 63% over last year and 114% over 2010. If the economy were to face a sudden downturn next year, many first-time buyers taking advantage of the rebate will not be able to pay the monthly installments. The government will lose 80 billion baht in tax rebates, as each buyer will be entitled to a refund of 100,000 baht. Instead of accelerating mass transit system to reduce costs and alleviate traffic congestion, the government promotes a huge bubble in the automobile sector. National fuel bills will rise to further undermine the country's balance of payments. Bubble 2. Real estate expands 53% this year. A real estate boom created both economic and financial bubbles. Most economies, including Japan, the US, and Spain, among others, are suffering severe pain in the aftermath of the bursting of their real estate bubbles. Thailand is traveling down this route. Bubble 3. The rice price pledging program represents another huge bubble. Last year, this price pledging program cost the government 376 billion baht, and the government is now sitting on a massive overpriced rice stock of 10 million tons. This year, the cost of implementing the program will rise to 432 billion baht as the government continues to buy every grain of paddy from farmers. In Bubble 4, corporate income tax has been slashed from 30% to 23%. This will lead to government revenue loss of 52 billion baht this year. Next year, corporate income tax will fall further to 20%, resulting in government revenue loss of 74 billion baht. In spite of the massive bubbles being created, the Thai economy will grow only 4.7% this year and 5% next year, according to the World Bank estimate. The bubbles created a short-term feel-good factor, but we all know that bubbles eventually pop. And when they pop, they can bring down the entire economy. We have not learned the lesson of 1997. Analysis by Thanong Kantong, Executive Editor from The Nation.
And just to continue with some negative news, as the report says that the government's insistence on maintaining the rice pledging price at 15,000 baht per ton for another year will continue to dampen Thailand's export competitiveness and rice trading industry. The report also said that it was also will lead to higher budgetary losses and a gloomy future for rice farming development. Yingluck Shinawat's government has recently agreed to extend its price pledging on the crop until February of next year. However, the plan to stick with the high pledging price will continue to ruin the Thai rice industry and plant development, according to the report. The country will inevitably face further losses, yet the most costly lesson is that Thailand could permanently lose its status as the world's largest rice exporter because of its inability to compete on price with leading rivals in the global market. The government could also go bankrupt because of another year of excessive spending via high subsidy costs, while it has to date earned small returns from rice selling. Meanwhile, the rice farmers will also suffer when the pledging program does eventually come to an end, since the government will then finally force them to grow other economic crops, on which there will be no need to pay a high subsidy until its farmland zoning plans. Budgetary spending on the rice scheme for the past full year stood at 337.24 billion baht, comprising 118.57 billion baht for major crop rice and 218.67 billion baht for second crop rice. The government has gained only 20 billion baht from rice sales, and the Bank of Agriculture and Agricultural Cooperatives have complained that it has lack of funds to continue the pledging.
And now let's move on to the world's second largest economy. According to a Hong Kong economist, China will open its markets and allow its currency to float within 5 years. Charles Lee, Chief Executive Officer of Hong Kong Exchange and Clearing, mentioned that China has to reform its interest rate system because the system of controlling the value of the Chinese currency to rise or fall within the narrow range cannot last forever. China last week allowed foreign financial companies to invest yuan rest offshore in its domestic markets, a step to reduce the nation's reliance on the dollar by boosting demand for the currency. People's Bank of China Governor Du Xiaoxuan also reiterated plans to gradually reform the exchange rate. HSBC Holdings Public Company forecast this week the yuan will become fully convertible within 5 years. After keeping the yuan stable for a decade, China allowed its currency to strengthen 21% from July 2005 to July 2008, including an initial single-day gain of 2%. Appreciation was then halted for almost 2 years to help exporters weather a global recession, and the currency has advanced 10% against the dollar since controls were loosened on June the 19th in 2010. The People's Bank of China sets a daily reference rate for the yuan based on market makers' quotations, and the spot contract in Shanghai can trade as much as 1% on either side. It last increased the band on April the 16, 2012, the first expansion since 2007. The majority of analysts predicted a further widening by the end of this year and 8 forecasts of revision in 2014. The yuan declined 0.04% to 6.2162 per dollar as of 11:56 a.m. in Shanghai. After the central bank weakened the currency's fixing for the first time in 3 days. 12-month non-deliverable forwards dropped 0.1% to 6.307, ending their longest winning streak since September 2010.
Moving on to a headline we cannot not mention, as leaders in Beijing has voted for 99.86% for Xi Jinping to be president, as completing China's 10-yearly transition of power. Xi appointed to the Communist Party's top post in November, replacing Hu Jintao, who is stepping down. The new premier, widely expected to be Li Keqiang, is scheduled to be named on Friday, replacing Wen Jiabao. Some 3,000 deputies to the National People's Congress, the annual parliamentary session, took part in the vote at the Great Hall of the People, where Xi was named the General Secretary of the Communist Party on November 8, and also given the leadership of the top military body, the Central Military Commission. This vote, handing him the role of the head of the state, was the final stage in the transition of power to him and his team, the slimmed-down 7-member standing committee. The largely symbolic role for vice president went to Li Yuanchao, seen as a close ally of Hu and a possible reformist. Xi is expected to make his first overseas visit as president to the BRICS summit in South Africa at the end of this month, while a visit to Russia is also expected soon. Since taking up the position of the much more powerful post of party chief last November, Xi has focused his rhetoric on fighting corruption and promoting austere practices, such as banning senior military officers from holding alcohol-filled banquets, which has helped him gain popularity among the public. And continuing with another updates in the region, Kun Sthaphat, is the conclusion of the ACMEX summit in Laos, where the conclusion of the regional cooperation includes Thailand, that it said that it would invest 2 trillion baht or $66 billion to construct infrastructure such as a land bridge to link Lam Shabang and Myanmar's Dawei Special Economic Zone, Kun Sthaphat. The action plan aims to develop Laos's route number 8 and 12 under the trilateral cooperation between the Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam.
Right, and the conference yesterday also concluded that the governments of Laos and Thailand yesterday signed a memorandum of understanding in Vientiane to cooperate in promoting the contract farming scheme that will see the export of Lao farm products into Thailand with tariff incentives, and also Thailand and Cambodia mount joint trade body through business councils.
Right, and another point that was concluded was ACMEX have urged Myanmar, Laos, PDR, and Vietnam to join the single visa initiative, which has been implemented already by Cambodia and Thailand.
And we are now taking a short break, but right after the break, Japan's lower house has already approved Kuroda for BOJ Bank governor, and also a special interview regarding the new Catholic Pope.